computer. There we go. There she is. Emily, it is all yours. I will make you, where's the thing that says spotlight for everyone? There we are. There you go.
It says you've disabled participant screen sharing. Sorry.
And for the life of me, I can't remember, what was this? What's the style again we're doing?
It's English,
Oh,
Scottish,
that's right.
and Australian.
Yes.
English, Irish, Scottish, and Australian.
Yes.
It's still telling me I can't share.
Really? Okay, hold on
Yeah.
a second. Hold on a minute. Multiple. Oh, there you go. Okay, how's that?
That looks like it.
Oh, buddy.
Everybody can see everything?
Not too shabby.
There you go. And let me just give me a second here. I will give you a minute. Where are my participants? There we are.
Yes, many.
Yeah. Okay.
And you're good.
Can you guys give me like a thumbs up if you can hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yay. So welcome to Style of the Month, English, Irish, Scottish, and one Australian style thrown in there just for good measure. Very brief history lesson. Beer in the British Isles flourished a lot more than it did in other parts of the world, mostly just because that's where barley was growing. People needed something that would provide sustenance, hydration, something that was clean, not full of bacteria. So it's like 2,000 years in Britain, but of course, Scottish people have a different interpretation. It's approximately 5,000 years. And if you look at the second link that I have there at the bottom, Skara Brae is a Scottish settlement where there's like an interesting history of beer brewing, and somebody went and tried to reproduce it. I don't think I would try the modern version because it has allegedly was brewed with excrement in some way. So if you're adventurous, you might want to try that. I'm not that adventurous, but so there's going to be 3 different slides here. The first one here is bitters. Bitters are primarily English style. They are nice and malty, but primarily they're bitter. They're not quite like a American bitter. They still are very characterfully British, though. They're always a little bit balanced. And generally the styles here are almost identical, except for they get a little bit darker, a little bit hoppier, a little bit fuller in mouthfeel, and a little bit stronger as they go along, but they're still quite drinkable. If you'll notice, like a strong beer is only like 4.5% to 6%. So something to note with the strong bitter, though, is that if you're looking like an English example of that style, ESB is kind of known as like the quintessential example of that, but in Britain, it's a trademark from Fuller's Brewery. So American brewers and American judges will think that that's like the quintessential example of the style, but it's really actually a really unique example, and it doesn't represent the whole style as a whole. So brewing something that is not exactly like an ESB is not necessarily a flaw, whereas in America, ESB is more of a well-rounded style. Scottish ales. As I mentioned earlier, Scottish beers have been brewed for approximately 5,000 years, and they've really got the style down pat, but they're nice and light still. So they're really malty and biscuity, but they're never ever peaty. So if you're thinking of Scotch, like that kind of earthy flavor, that comes from the water, and that's actually a flaw in these styles. If you want to do something like that, you would enter it into like a wood or a smoke beer. And these are all still quite light. Even the export is only going up to 6%. The other styles, British, Irish, and Australian. British Golden Ale is a nice, light, crisp. There's actually quite a few examples in Toronto. I'll get to those in a little while. Australian Sparkling Ale, if anybody here started with Cooper's beer kits, that's what you should think of. Cooper's Brewery is the brewery that makes Cooper's beer kits. They've kind of become quintessential with home brewing and getting people into the door of home brewing. So they're a nice, light, sparkling, always very highly carbonated, and the yeast plays a very big part of it. They should always be naturally carbonated, never forced carb, even when they're in a keg. The third style is an Irish red ale. I know that Bear does an excellent example of this one. It's a nice, light, still drinkable. And there's two different interpretations of this. You can do a traditional or you can have a modern version of it. So that's why when you see the bars on the list, they're a little bit wider, like in terms of mouthfeel and carbonation, because there's the two different examples of it. So as I mentioned, a couple different examples in the recipe database. I think Bear is holding his Congratulations Mike Van beer there, and that comes from when we did Last Brewer Standing a couple of years ago. There are quite a few examples of style locally. I did not list Fuller's ESB on here because it's not currently available at the LCBO. It's out of stock in every store. So if you can find it, it is technically imported into Ontario, and that's the example of an ESB. Granite, of course, does very, very good British beers. And Big Rock, I reluctantly put this beer here because it, if anybody can see the ABV on there, it's listed as 7%, which is far outside of the range for a Scottish heavy. So it's more leaning towards a wee heavy, but they label it as a Scottish heavy, so I'm going to trust that they have the other aspects right. Okay. We're going to take a break from Style of the Month in December so that we can have like a social meeting. So I'm pretty sure that we'll get to that later, but so we'll resume in January with brown and amber ales. And there's a couple recipes on the database. Two of them are quite topical because they're going to be hosting our meeting next month. So that's all I have for Style of the Month.